Most people just want to be free. They want to be left alone. They don't want to be harassed, robbed, threatened, and abused. So it's difficult to wrap your mind around the fact that anyone supports a guy who says,
and the government isn't a problem. The government is the only reason they have the free time and ability to about the government. There's never been less tyranny from the government. The tyranny comes from your own sin. The government is never with you. Never, ever.
He also says that we need way more government regulation, not less. But this guy does support Owen Benjamin. I recently found out that the generally specific guy did a reaction video during the debate live stream. Now, the recurring theme behind those who want a state apparatus to keep us safe is that we who believe in free association or voluntaryism or anarchy must show them where in the world voluntarism has ever worked before.
Show me someplace on the map where anarchy actually exists and is applicable for any span of time other than, Jonestown. Or, and eventually it ends up one cult leader sleeping with everyone else's wife and a bunch of disenfranchised dudes get angry and leave. And then next thing you know, everyone's drinking Kool-Aid and dying. That's how anarchy almost always ended up.
The problem with this line of thinking is that Jonestown is not an example of anarchy. It's an example of statism. Somebody who resists the idea of having a ruler calling the shots for everybody else would not buy into the cultic idea that Jim Jones has the right to rule everybody. And the belief in the right of the few to rule over the many is statism, and it is a cult. Why? Because you have to exercise unfounded belief in a concept that doesn't exist, and that is that a few people have the right to rob and rule everybody else, and it's A-okay. Now, during his reaction to the so-called debate with the guy who wants more tyrannical regulation, Generally Specific was name-calling and making remarks that had nothing to do with the meat of what was being said. At one point, he posted in the live chat, quote, "Brian has been giggling like a retard farting in a bathtub chasing bubbles." I quoted his comment under one of his recent live streams, and he read it and listened to his interesting response.
Well, and here's something that I don't like statism either. I mean,
You were giggling like a retard fart in the bathtub.
His response to my comment was giggling.
Statism either. I mean,
which is how I was reacting to Owen's preposterous, cultic, and dishonest statements. Now, let's get back to this question of where has anarchy ever worked, which he keeps asking.
I'm just still waiting for someone to point on the map to any geographical location in any particular time period where this anarchism theory was actually a system and actually functioned.
This is exactly the kind of question you could have asked the founders back during the Constitutional Convention. Where has this constitutional republic ever functioned in the past, Ben? Right around this point, a person in the chat room said, "Our government is supposed to be a certain way, but they have become corrupt. So throw the baby out with the bathwater or fix it." And while you argue, yes, there are those who do represent us. To which I responded, our U.S. government hates us, steals from us, locks us down, shoves money to Big Pharma and the military-industrial complex, and people want to defend that? Rad to the Moon replies, "I agree with those things you are saying, but that does not mean anarchy is the answer." Well, if it's never really been attempted on a large scale before, according to them, then why would we keep doing what we've been doing? If we keep on doing what we've been doing, expecting a different result, isn't that insanity? I said to this person, our government is corrupt, but don't you see this "our government was supposed to be ... equals the theory of utopia that is condemned when people suggest voluntarism. So Generally Specific reads this post in the chat room.
Our government is corrupt, but I don't see that as our government is supposed to be equals the theory of utopia. You failed. You failed in the constitutional republic to keep your government in check. I failed in the constitutional republic to keep my government in check. Sloth, laziness, I don't know, taking stuff for granted, being too busy to pay attention. We failed. We, the people, failed to keep our government in check. That's why the system sucks. That's why every system will always find ways to be corrupt.
He's admitting the system is corrupt and that it failed, but he blames me. He blames himself, and he blames everyone for its failure because we didn't keep psychopaths in check. But when did the Constitution really fail? It failed immediately. Or did it? Maybe it worked exactly the way it was designed to work, to be a system of a different kind of rulership. But let's just say it failed in meeting the objective of preserving, protecting, and defending the unalienable rights of life, liberty, property, and happiness. How long was it a success? Well, it never was. The Constitution was written in 1787, was ratified in 1788, and came into operation in 1789. And by 1798, Congress passed the Alien and Sedition Acts, which attacked the very heart of free speech and free press. Criticism of Adams' government was not tolerated, while you could hypocritically criticize Vice President Thomas Jefferson. And the Supreme Court never struck it down, and it wasn't abolished until Jackson became president in 1800. So what does this mean? It means that the Constitution actually means nothing. All that matters is who sits on the presidential throne. He's the one who's going to call the shots. But because power is not content being subjugated or treated equally, the Supreme Court jumped into the ring in 1803, granting itself the right of judicial review, which means they alone can determine the constitutionality of the actions of the other two branches of government and the constitutionality as it applies to all the people. So, who really has the power? And is there such a thing as checks and balances like we're constantly being told? Or is it a fiction, a utopia? Reportedly, upon leaving the Constitutional Convention, Benjamin Franklin was met with cries from a woman yelling outside, "Sir, what have you given us?" He supposedly responded, "A republic, ma'am, if you can keep it." The representative constitutional republic clearly doesn't work. This framework has either authorized the bloated, powerful, tyrannical government we currently have, and it is bloated and powerful, or it's been powerless to stop it. In either case, it is not fit to exist. Now, if the Constitution and our U.S. government really is securing your liberties, then it would have prevented the Federal Reserve, the income tax, the IRS, the world wars. It would have prevented the Patriot Act, the Affordable Care Act, red flag laws, and all the other thousands of laws that trample your rights and siphon your wealth. But it hasn't stopped any of that. Is anarchy the answer? I don't know. Is it? Is peaceful coexistence without a couple hundred narcissistic megalomaniacs robbing and ruling the rest of us the right way to go? This guy knows what anarchism is. He knows it's right, and he admits that he and his buddies practice it.
I'm not trying to mess with anyone else, but I'm not going to tolerate anyone messing with me. That's kind of anarchism. And me and my buddies here agree with that. We're going to defend what's ours. So again, I go back to all you are is a nation building up defense to keep what you like and what you want to preserve, which is what we already have. But we're failing to do what we're supposed to do as a people to make sure that the government is upholding what they're supposed to uphold.
He also admits that the government that he wants to be under are all pirates.
The government is offering you commercial trade abilities, keeps the roads free from pirates. gives you the post office,
No,
which I believe
the
to be as
government
close
is the
to a
pirates. I
miracle as I've
disagree
ever
with all
witnessed.
on that one. I'm not trying to mess with anyone else, but I'm not going to tolerate anyone messing with me. That's kind of anarchism. And me and my buddies here agree with that. We're going to defend what's ours. All you are is a nation building up defense to keep what you like and what you want to preserve.
It's true. Anarchists are people who organize for protection, for trade, for profit, for the pursuit of life. But the last part is just plain silly.
Which is what we already have.
Those in government are upholding one thing: their perceived right to control you and violate your free will in the name of national security. He understands what anarchy is, admits he participates in it in principle, realizes it's the right thing to do, and yet he bows to the altar of the evils of statism. But there's more. He admits that the constitutional republic was an absolute failure.
So if we failed with one of the most perfect systems ever created on the face of the earth, a constitutional republic, how are we going to succeed with anarchy? Especially when everyone around us doesn't believe in that system, and they're going to come and take it because they have a more established military and a more established thirst for whatever it is that you might have.
Are you hearing what he's saying? In principle and practice, he knows free association and voluntarism and consensual organization to repel invaders is the right thing to do, but in his mind, we can't hold on to those principles, morals, and virtues because somebody more powerful might come along and take our stuff. Well, guess who's taking your stuff? People who believe they have the right to violently oppress you and take your stuff. Status. People like him. What I'm hearing is that principle must be abandoned or we lose the fight. But the problem is principles and morality aren't beliefs. They're demonstrable, immovable, immutable laws of the universe in the realm of humanity. And he wants to walk away from those because he might lose a fight with somebody who's stronger than him. So when he says, show me a place on the map where anarchy exists and works, and uses that as a reason to not walk a principled, virtuous life and construct a society based on those free market anarchist principles, I came back at him with the exact same logic when it was okay for Americans to own slaves. What if back in the late 1700s, if an abolitionist came to a slave owner and said, it's immoral for you to own another man? What if the slave owner said, show me a place on the map where slavery doesn't exist? It's along the same lines as a statist saying, without government, who will build the roads? It'd be like a slave owner who doesn't want to free his slaves saying, without the slaves, who would pick the cotton? The issue is not that something potentially good for society has never occurred before. The question is slavery right or is it wrong? Is violating the will of individuals right or is it wrong? Just stop and answer that question for yourself, because this is the entire argument. And adding anything on top of that is just to obscure what's really going on here.
Using the same logic back in the 1800s, someone could say, show me a place on the map where slavery doesn't exist. It still exists, Brian. It's actually more prevalent right now than it's ever been on the face of the planet. Matter of fact,
we don't need more regulation either, like Owen said. No.
Yeah, we don't need more
it.
regulation. And it says, show me where it's ever worked. The question is slavery right or wrong? And I get an answer to that. It seems to me that slavery is perfectly hunky-dory when you're the slave master, but it sucks really bad when you're the slave who's being owned.
He didn't answer the question. Is an attempt to own another man against his will right, or is it wrong? I'll answer it. It's wrong. And no matter how many excuses people make to continue the slave trade, those excuses will never be right, and it'll never make that action right. It's the same with robbing and ruling others in the name of a republic or a democracy or law and order or whatever. Robbing and ruling others is wrong, and it is right to always stand against it and to never back down, even if somebody points out that standing against it just won't work. Generally Specific constantly says that anarchists have in mind a utopian Peter Pan, Wendy, and Tinkerbell fictional world that has never existed. I point out to him that the same can be said of a constitutional representative republic. Politicians don't represent you. They never have. So it's a utopia. It's nowhere in existence. So he reads this.
So a constitutional republic sounds like a utopia that will never happen. Exactly. I've already said that, dude. This is the answer, is to continue on with our government. No, the answer is to look in the fucking mirror, figure out what you need to do to fix this world.
To which I say, amen, because he agrees that a supposed constitutional republic is a utopia that has never existed. And his idea of fixing the world involves giving others the right to control and regulate you. Then I ask a follow-up question to this same concept, and he contradicts his admission that the Constitution is a utopian concept.
Show me where a constitutional republic works anywhere in the world. America, where everyone is flocking to come, dude.
It's true. People flock to come here in droves. But why? Because even with its tyranny, it's perceived to be more free and less tyrannical than other countries. So people gravitate toward what they perceive to be more freedom and less tyranny. So what's the answer to achieving less tyranny? Obviously, less government. So it only follows then that the maximum amount of freedom is achieved where there is no tyranny and thus no government. Why don't we want to work toward that? He then says this to Anarchist Television.
Anarchist Television, man. You got to listen. I'm going to say it one more time, okay? The kind of freedom that anarchy would exhibit means that I could come kick your f***ing door down, drag you out of your house, shoot you in the f***ing head, and take everything that was yours. That's the kind of freedom you're espousing.
This is absolutely not anarchism. In an anarchist society, many more people would be armed because there would be no government infringing against the right to keep and bear arms. You're taking a real gamble breaking into a real anarchist house. But we'll move on.
You're saying it's dangerous. I agree it's dangerous. That's why you need, and I would rather live in a state system, a statism, because there are at least some rules that might deter someone from kicking my front door, dragging me out, and shooting me in the head, and then taking everything that I own. I'd rather be in a world where that might give some people a pause where they won't just automatically do that. You keep saying that freedom is dangerous and people are scared of it. Trust me, there are people that are out there that you don't want, like Attila the Hun, Genghis Khan, Mao, Pol Pot. I mean,
he says that he would rather live in a state system, and then he lists the murderous leaders of the state system that grew so powerful that they couldn't be resisted. All because people believe in the fiction called authority or government or the state.
Yeah, it's dangerous. It's scary. People think they want it, but they don't realize that big fish eat little fish all the fucking time, and there's no fish tribunal for anybody to fucking complain to. Who are you going to complain to when the big fish eats you?
So who will you complain to when the big fish is the United States government, and they're so powerful and people are so hoodwinked that it's virtually impossible to stand against its power? The state system he loves produced these big fish.
I would rather live in a state system, a statism.
What the hell did you just say?
I would rather live in a state system, a statism.
So he's promoting the idea that we need people to have the power to violently control the rest of us as long as they promise to protect your property. And we know how far those promises go. There's a lot more that could be said about this guy. Generally Specific was calling me feminine and a whiny little bitch, which is fine. People can say whatever they want, but ad hominems and name calling and statements like, Brian is so effing feminine, wow, have nothing to do with the argument. Not only that, he hypocritically responds to things in the same way I was responding during the debate and the same way Owen was responding during the debate. But he never called out Owen as a whiny feminine bitch when he acted the exact same way. Not only that, he engaged in his own condescending laughter.
Brian's
You're lying
really
again.
feminine right now.
No.
Tell me how great you are. Resist evil, Brian. That's so all right? When you drive to the gas station and you look at those billboards, do you know the only thing stopping a billboard?
Those regulations.
doing like
we
a
need more of
soap
those
opera drama.
restrictions. These are just some examples of many I could have put on this video, but it would have been way too long. It appears that in calling me feminine, he's calling himself feminine for these same actions, which is pretty bizarre. He also said I was going to bail on the conversation when it was Owen who ended up bailing.
Yeah, he's gonna
Oh,
quit.
you're just going to bail now, right?
No, I'm not bailing. Generally Specific said several times that I'm looking in the chat for someone to bail me out.
Look at Brian, man.
friend?
He's like
Is that what
looking
you're
at the
explaining?
chat. He's
I'm
he's
asking
desperate
you,
for
is
someone
it,
to throw
is it
him some
funding
kind of.
or if you
dollars,
lifeline.
Brian, bank
Brian's
owns
looking at the
your,
chat
your
for help.
house, and you play make-believe. Time.
Yeah, Brian
The
don't know what to say.
trans child
Mhm.
movement was
He's
because the
looking to the
government
chat for help.
stopped.
all these statements are untrue, and it's what people say when they're trapped in a cognitive bias. Why else would somebody make a statement about a person that they have absolutely no way of proving or disproving? And if they're going to lie about that, there's no telling what else they're intentionally being dishonest about. Leave your thoughts about this for the world and the global thought police in the comments section below. If you haven't done so already, subscribe to this channel, hit the bell notification icon, give it a thumbs up, share it with everybody you know. Don't forget to subscribe to my email list through my website, highimpactflix.com. If you want to support the channel further, grab a shirt, become a channel member, but more importantly, know what freedom is, stand for your rights. Freedom is always going to be dangerous. You're always going to have to defend it. There's always going to be somebody who wants to trample on your freedom. The question is, are you going to let it happen? Are you going to stand on principle? Are you going to do the right thing no matter what the odds are? I'll see you in the next video.